My name is Tom Hanks, and I am super excited because my daughter Sophie and I are competing in the Miss Ultimate Sexy Baby Nevada pageant. And when it comes to awards, this is as big as it gets.
I'm Sophie Hanks, and I want to be Miss Ultimate Sexy Baby. I like pageants because I like winning money, and I get to buy anything I want.
Sophie and I did her first page when she was only 3 months old. Here she is. She got Queen. You remember that, honey?
Not really.
It's a beautiful day.
Oh, God, that was fantastic. That was Tom Hanks doing a satire, unfortunately, that cuts too close to home, of beauty pageants. There's actually a television show called Toddlers and Tiaras, which I have very purposefully avoided ever watching. So today, I hear from Deborah Norville about a story, and I think, oh, my goodness, we have to get Deborah on to talk about this. This is a story about a mom who gave Botox injections to her 8-year-old daughter and actually defends the practice. Deborah Norville is the anchor of Inside Edition. You know her from so many years of distinguished broadcasting. She's worked at the CBS News. She anchored America Tonight. She reported for 48 Hours, Street Stories, so many other things, including having her own television and radio show. Deborah Norville, welcome to the Lisa Wexler Show today.
Hey, Lisa, how are you?
I'm great. And
tell you what, Lisa, this is one that is just jaw-dropping. You know, Tom Hanks, that was a really funny shit that they did. But there's so much. The good comedy is usually rooted in truth, and there's so much truth in this, but its truth is stranger than fiction in this one. Can you imagine, I don't know how old your kids are, but can you imagine when they were 8 years old, injecting them with Botox?
Listen, first of all, okay, so I'm 50 and I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I don't run away from it either. And I've been doing it in my own forehead for the last few years, but that's because I actually have lines and I'm an adult. I'm over 21 and I can make decisions about myself.
But I bet you're going to a doctor.
Absolutely.
She's doing this herself.
Okay, that was my
home.
Okay, this was my first question for you, Deborah. How is it that she received this product and is able to inject it? I thought it was only able to be administered by nurses and doctors.
Well, that's what we all thought, and all she will tell us is it comes from a, quote, reputable source. She's also said she gets it from someone in the doctor world. Now, that's pretty nonspecific. There have been some other indications that she might have obtained it on the internet, and if that's the case, I'm even more horrified, because we did a story the other day about those permanent makeups. You know, the people get the tattooed eyebrows and the tattooed lips, and you can buy those kits online. So we bought one. It came from China, manufactured in China. We had the materials evaluated at a laboratory. The needles were filled with lead and other bacterial contaminants. The paints that were used had lead and other highly dangerous substances you would not want to ingest in your body. So I cannot imagine that quote-unquote Botox that you get online, A, is Botox, or B, is anything safe.
Well, I think the beauty, number one, of doing this story is that allergen, which I think makes Botox, will probably make sure that this woman in particular doesn't get it, and there'll be pressure on them, I would think, to stop the spread of this in this way. I would hope so anyway.
I would hope so, too. I think it's a really interesting thing that a person who is engaged in this, and she's completely unapologetic. We did an interview that you'll see this evening on Channel 3 with the little girl and with the mom, and our reporter, the mother lives in California, and our reporter, Jim Murray, who did the interview, asked the little girl, are you scared sometimes getting the shots? Remember, she's 8 years old, so you don't want to, it's not the Inquisition here. And she said, yeah. And he said, does it hurt? And she said, yeah.
Yeah, of course it hurts.
Do you cry? She said, yeah.
Yeah.
And the mom said, no.
Uh-huh.
And the little girl looks at the mom sort of sheepishly, and the reporter said, well, why do you say no? She says that she sometimes cries. And the mom says, I don't know why she said that. That's like she didn't hear what you asked or something. And it was quite apparent, and our reporter's impression was whenever the little girl said something that didn't seem to be in concert with what the mother wanted her to say, she started to withdraw and looked sheepish and kind of chagrined. It's really worrisome.
It's interesting because it has to be asked. So let's just ask it. We're both mothers. Is this child abuse?
That's a good question. And I don't know if it would qualify under the specifics of the laws, which do vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We asked her and said, some people will consider this child abuse. She said, I take excellent care of my child. I do not abuse my child. This is not child abuse. And quite frankly, the little girl says she likes it, that it makes her feel prettier after she's had these Botox shots. Lisa, she's even had her legs waxed.
Well, oh God, please don't stop.
She's 8 years old.
Okay, you know what? This little girl has to say it makes her feel good to be pretty, because being pretty is her entire essence and moral compass since she's been out of the womb.
Well, that's what her mother seems to be
of course.
Indoctrinating her with.
Well, clearly she's been brainwashed that if she's not beautiful on the outside, she's worth nothing on the inside.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was talking with another woman today who has a 9-year-old girl who announced to her the other day, Mommy, I'm so excited. I got on the scale and I only weigh 69. I used to weigh 71. She's 9 years old. And this is a woman who absolutely is, like you and me, bending over backwards not to even insinuate those kinds of messages subliminally, and let's go outside and play, let's go to the apple place and pick apples, healthy stuff. But she's getting it from her friends at school. So girls in particular are being confronted with this in the same way that having teenage boys, I can tell you that boys are being subtly persuaded.
Oh, they are.
The ripped muscles, take the protein powders.
Yeah.
I've had
steroids
conversations
for sports.
about
Absolutely.
all those kinds of things. And it's maybe this is the real reason to do these stories. It's a reminder to all of us as parents to make sure the messages your child is getting.
Well, it's interesting because I just interviewed not too long ago Peggy Orenstein. She wrote that book about the Cinderella, I forgot the name of it, but it's the idea that there's a $3 billion business in marketing the Cinderella fantasy to girls, even in their pajamas in the hospital. And it's now something that is a concerted effort by Disney, particularly Disney, but by other manufacturers as well, to imprint upon our kids. But we as mothers are supposed to know better. We are supposed to be the individual role models for our daughters and our sons. I think this whole toddlers and tiaras thing is a sick culture to begin with, Deborah Norville. Don't you think so? It's a sick thing. Would you ever have put your kid in a beauty pageant?
Oh, gosh, no. But it's funny. I come from Georgia, and there are three things that matter where I come from in the South: football, beauty pageants, and God. And it's pretty much in that order.
Really?
Absolutely. And the little kid pageants were a very, very popular activity, not with anybody in my circle. And I don't mean to sound snobbish, and it'll come off that way, but it tended to be people in a lower socioeconomic strata that were participating in these kinds of things. And, dads and moms, and the, guys will be there in their trucker hats, and they're sitting at these hotels. And that was a story I used to do as a local reporter in Atlanta 1,000 years ago. It's a really popular thing in certain parts of the country. It can be a completely fun and healthy thing, but it is such a slippery slope, and if you just even get close to the edge, you can easily find yourself obsessed about it and spending every nickel that you have or nickels that you don't have, and it can be a very unhealthy thing. So I think you're right. As moms, we have to be vigilant, but the reality is the media impressions that our kids are getting, and our kids are away from us more than they are with us.
Yeah.
Once they start going to school, those impressions are very difficult to counteract, which makes our jobs all the more difficult. It doesn't mean we've waved the white flag.
But all the more important to stress the inner beauty and the inner character of our children when they're getting these other messages. I have a lot of people emailing me and talking to me and calling into the studio. One person asks, are the moms living their old dream through the kids? And by the way, the moms all are fat and ugly. That's what this person writes.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
And your writer is right on the money. I think there's a lot of sort of unrequited longing that's being lived out through these kids. And look, I've got a son in college, and he's trying to get those internships, and I'm thinking back on the mistakes I made when I was looking for my internships in college, and so I guess in some ways I'm trying to relive my experience through my son, but relive it in a more positive way. Don't do this with your resume. Make sure it looks like that, because I didn't, and it didn't work for me. So it can go both ways.
Well, parents have to guide their kids. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. But the idea is, like you just said, if you grow up in a place like Georgia and you weren't pretty enough to compete in a beauty pageant when you were a kid, but then you have a little girl who's pretty, and then it becomes all about living your childhood through that kid. To me, it's just a very sick, sad message, particularly for women and girls.
Well, that was certainly the criticism of Patsy Ramsey. When the John Benet Ramsey case was holding the country captivated.
Poor late Patsy Ramsey, who went to her death still being accused of killing the little girl that she adored, and I never believed she killed her, ever.
I wish someone had been brought to justice for that.
Yeah, me too.
It would have been a comfort for her memory, wouldn't it?
It really would have. And I wanted to ask you something else. Given it's not the exact same thing, but it was breaking news yesterday, and you broke the story about Bristol Palin and the jaw.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about, did you actually get to talk with her yourself?
We interviewed her, and it's funny. I wonder if the person who did the interview even had a clue who they were talking to. She was at the Correspondents' Dinner in Washington a week ago, and so we had that footage, and none of us knew that was Bristol Palin. No, it isn't. She looks like a long-lost Kardashian sister, whoever this person was.
Wow.
And so today on Inside Edition, again, you'll see it on Channel 3 in Hartford at 7 o'clock. Today you'll see our expert plastic surgeons who are looking at the befores and the afters and giving their professional opinion. And to say that there is a high degree of skepticism that it was dental surgery is putting it really mildly.
But this is a woman. Listen, she's a mom, right? So she's a woman who's had some experience in her life. She's not an average
20-year-old girl.
Right. And so if she wants to make a decision, listen, this is all the rage in China now, Deborah. I mean, this is what I'm not going to second guess her. She has a beautiful mother. She has a handsome father. She went on Dancing with the Stars, and all people talked about was how fat and ugly and clumsy she was. If she wants to make herself beautiful, and she said she took off a few pounds, far be it for me to judge her.
5 pounds?
No, a lot more?
She said she lost 5 pounds, and it created this dramatic difference. I'm sorry.
No.
She's lost 5 pounds going to the bathroom, and I don't look different.
But you know what, Deborah? It's the Star Jones thing. It's when she denied having gastric bypass, and everybody saw the weight melt off. She couldn't even come to grips with it. Come on.
Here's me, Lisa, what I find troubling about this. I think that, to me, it says, I'm a young woman who's not content with who I am, with certain aspects about my life, and I believe that I will be more happy if I have this done. And I think that's really tragic because in my own experience, happiness comes from the relationships with the people in my life, whether it's, my family members and my close friends or even the guys I work with. Those people make me happy. It doesn't come from anything that I slather on my face or
Well, that's true, but if she wants a career in politics and the media, and clearly she wants some kind of a career in the media, then she is basically saying, I'm in and I'm going to play the game that everybody in Hollywood expects me to play. It's a sad thing.
Well, can I just tell you, as someone who has been on television for 30 years, that is a game and a ballpark and a stadium into which I have never ventured, and I've been pretty successful. So I would hate to think that Bristol Palin or anyone who aspires to some sort of career in the public eye feels that they have to have their face reworked in order to have a chance of success. I am here to tell you it's not necessary.
But you're also very pretty. I mean, Deborah, honestly, Deborah Norville, you've always been very pretty. And maybe, I'm just playing devil's advocate with you. I'm not agreeing with what Bristol Palin did, but I can see the external pressures on this girl who is really a lost soul in so many ways anyway.
That's my point.
Yes, I know.
That's my point. She's a lost soul.
She is.
And plastic surgery isn't going to help you find that soul.
No.
And here's the thing. Why is she aspiring to a career in the public eye? If it makes her feel uncomfortable, if it makes her feel unworthy. Why is she doing this? Why suddenly, because she was an unwed mother and thrust into the spotlight when her mother was nominated for vice president, why suddenly this change in your life and in your aspirations? It just seems I find it very, very sad.
It is sad.
And, there are a few people in the public eye I pray for, and I actually prayed for Bristol Palin last night.
Well, that's interesting, Deborah Norville. And I'll tell you something else. What you know, and you know this because you can look back on 30 years, not only doesn't it buy happiness, but once you get on that treadmill to trying to make yourself look beautiful by external procedures, you end up like a Joan Rivers, unfortunately, and you end up looking like you were ultimately in a car wreck and somebody tried to reconstruct your face.
It's not a good end, is it?
No, it isn't. But you know, we'll pray for Bristol Palin. We'll hope that she'll be okay from the inside out. But I'm praying also for this poor little 8-year-old girl who is stuck with a mother who I believe is abusing her. I will say it, that I believe that's as close to child abuse as you can get, because there's brainwashing, there's verbal abuse without question outside of the cameras, and now there's the intentional infliction of pain and possible medical damage. She's not a medical professional, and she's inserting a poison into the forehead. If you don't call that abuse, what do you call that?
Listen. You're talking to the choir here, baby. I could not agree more. It's very troubling.
7:00 tonight, Channel 3 WFSB, coming from Hartford, but available in all of our homes in the listening area. Deborah Norville, Inside Edition. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hope you come back again.
I'd love to. Thanks so much to you.
Sure. Thanks.